Oh, baby. Wait, are we connected? Hold on. Dang it. Oh my, the drums. There's so much drums. So much. Wanted to do that thing where it gets too loud. Okay. Sorry, I'm always late, but there's just so much drama that I don't talk about drama on my channel. Instead, is the audio okay? Put twos in the chat if it's bad. Yeah. Does anybody actually like the taste of Red Bull? Hello, sir. Dude, is it noon already? I know. I had been ready for this the day we were going to do it. It's just that it's such a complicated topic. And first, I have to actually assess it, read their argumentation. And then I have to gauge whether or not they know what they're talking about. And that's tricky when you have such a oh, I probably should change the title. I didn't even put it in there. When you're talking about things that are complicated, honestly. It's really that simple. Is this backwards? You guys have to tell me because it looks backwards from my view, and I'm like, fuck. So then I took an hour to try to download, what do you call it? Whiteboard on Google something. I bought the domain months ago, but I haven't hooked it up to a web service or whatever it's called. So it's in limbo. But in order to get that Google Slides and whiteboard, you had to do this transfer key shit. Now, so that took me a long time, and then I realized this isn't working because it's not popping up. But what is popping up is like ChatGPT to some diagram thing, and I was like, oh, that could be useful. That could be very useful. And I got distracted trying to input all of the stuff that I wrote down, like in a fucking notebook, like a nerd. And I was like, okay. And then me and ChatGPT had been arguing, Janet. And hello, Bro Dukas. I hope that is not a trap name. And by trap name, I mean getting me to say something that will ultimately be a soundbite. I don't know. So the proposition is if free will, I have it right on my handy dandy whiteboard today. If free will exists, then God cannot be omniscient. I can't even say it. So, see, the tricky thing with ChatGPT is that it can do a good amount of stuff. It's not very good at debate. If you've done formal debate, you know what I'm talking about. I mean, it can get you there for sure, but when it comes to when it comes to structuring, it's fine. But what it isn't good at is arguments arguments on their own. And so when I was inputting like all this into that diagram, I don't even know it's some new chat GPT. I don't even know if it's new. It's the first time I saw it, honestly. But I was putting it in there, and then it gave me this diagram, and I was like, wow, that's literally the epitome of my brain. It didn't do it well, and it started to question me, which how dare she? No, I'm just kidding. But it was questioning why I was choosing to do three of the top arguments for something that addressed one thing, and the way that it wanted to do it was something else. And I was like, Where did you get that idea? It hallucinated on me, and so I never got that answer. So, it's easier to catch stuff like that when it's really simple propositions, but this one was really complicated. I, like, questioned myself. I was like, "Wait a minute." So I took some time, and then I went back, and I was like, "Yeah, no, Janet's stupid." I was like, "Is this just my ego?" I don't know. Nope, she dumb. She dumb. Um, Granted, it wasn't, like, the paid for version, so they, like it's like, "I'm not talking anymore." It's like, "Bitch!" Whatever, whatever. So, I always say if you're just starting debates, knowing the structure of an introduction is going to make everything else seamless. If you can get that down, you really shouldn't have a problem. Hello, it's always sunny in Westoros. Thank you. That's cool. I haven't seen that before. Uh, so the topic is we are going to
God is all knowing.
this is the debate that we're looking at. This is the debate. Glenn's moderating. We have Tariq in the top right. Then below him is Nadim, and then Jim Bob. And when I wrote all this out, and then I wrote out Janet's version of events, fucking Janet, I was like, okay, let's go back. And I watched it again while looking at my actual transcript. I've described transcribes the entire video because I have to read things to make sure that I understand somebody's thing and then go back and look at their like presentation of it. You know, when you just read something, you really can't tell like the vibes, shockingly. But it became clear to me that I was like, why are they setting traps like that? It's just a little strange. And then I asked Janet, I was like, based on this transcript, did they use ChatGPT? Because why the fuck did Nadim say category error? If somebody was in a debate with me formally in front of an audience and they used category error, no offense, but I'd be like, okay, ChatGPT. Like that's just such an easy thing to set up to discredit somebody. So I was like, okay, let's not get in the weeds, bitch. Okay. So my point to all of this is that this is a really, really complicated debate. It's going to be harder to follow if you're not even familiar with something like determinism. I would assume that's the more difficult component to it. It could be the God part. What else did I had some other things. Overall, logically consistent. So there's that. Framing was fine. There was a lot of opportunities after watching it 1,000 times. There was a lot of opportunities on Tariq to turn it around in his favor. And so what does that look like in like the grand scheme of things? Being too specific on their intro, being like, I said this, I'm only saying this, and reiterating that. And I understand why people do that because if you get too narrow on something, so we'll talk about definitions in a minute, you'll know what I mean. If we get too narrow on a definition and you're worried that you are not going to be able to defend your position, the only time that really happens is if you don't really understand it. Now, I'm not going to say that they outright don't understand what they're talking about. I can't make a claim like that. How could I substantiate that? I can't see into their brains, right? But usually, like a little bit of triggering, shockingly enough, is my way to actually gauge something like that. And I didn't find there to be triggering at all. So it gave like ChatGPT vibes, like just fucking reading off ChatGPT. Again, I can't really make that claim. It's just the way I feel. Anyways, I don't mind it. It's just that it's gonna be a little bit different than something that comes from the soul, right? I got my tapioca drink. Is it backwards? It is for me. Fuck. Hola, mucho gusto, okay? Cerveza, por favor. Becky Babble. Be sweet. Jesus. I just got called Becky? Fuck you. Now it gets louder. I'm done. Oh, it's probably sensitive. I'm so stupid sometimes. Okay. If free will exists, I'll put it in here. If free will exists, God cannot be whatever the fuck. Got it. Come on. Why is it going slow? Why is it going slow? Okay. That's our proposition. The affirmative, the person who agrees with the proposition, right? It's been a moment. We're back. Guys, I'm so glad I got this infection taken care of. I can focus. Kind of, not really. My abs are back. It's great. It's always sunny in Westeros. What's your opinion on the situation? Here we go with the orbits. Is that... Dude, they're like clockwork. I can't tell if that's you or not. You're thinking. What's this about? Just covering a debate. Okay. So something you want to keep it. Oh, wait. The negative is who disagrees with the proposition. However, when you first make your constructive, your opening, whatever it is, where you briefly lay out your arguments, ideally you counter the opponents, but not everybody does that. You have to ask yourself, you can't read it, god damn it. How do you define free will? Oh no. We okay? We okay? Let me plug this in. When you're defining something, it's kind of hard. Sorry. Oh god. It's sparking. It's kind of hard to know right away. Like, should I keep my should I keep my definition broad or should I keep it narrow? This is one of the really good ways to start out a debate in general. It's common etiquette, if you will. And until you know your arguments laid out, which is why I always say write them down, you're not going to know really if you should keep it broad or narrow. Some topics it might be easier to see, but it's not always obvious. So you write out your top 3 arguments, then you write out your opponent's top 3 arguments. It sounds easy, but a lot of people don't do that part. And then they wonder why they're so confused. Because of that, okay, so you write out your top 3 arguments, and then you have to ask yourself, in what way could I frame this style of opening? How could I frame my overall position to not necessarily undermine the other person, but to benefit whatever I say that may just come out later when I'm in the weeds? Like, I want to set this up so that it benefits me more. And so one of the ways you can do that is in the definition. Usually people will just concede on the definition and not know that. Don't do that. Okay. You don't have to set up any traps if you don't want to. If you can get the definition right, you don't even have to do that shit. It just comes naturally. So Did I say all that? Okay. For affirmative, I tried to put this over here and it hit me earlier, and I rubbed some of it off. But number one, foreknowledge implies determinism. That would be for the affirmative. On the other side, in the negative, foreknowledge does not imply causation. This is absolutely going to be their first argument because it sets the tone for everything. I feel like it does. At some point, you're going to hear words like secondary and timeless knowledge. I actually don't know. They might not do that. They might only do the second causality. Me and Janet disagreed on this one. And then for 3, this is on the negative side, potentiality. This is the one that I'm like, fuck, dude. This is the one that is, I'm like, I can't even really follow this. I'm just being honest. This is what to look for. 4, logical compatibility. This is the part that's going to, it's 3 and 4 that are going to really, really complicate things. Compatibilism, I can't even say the fucking word. It shouldn't exist. Okay. I always make fun of them because they're like the ones that, and no offense. Okay. You have one side, God, who religious people in general, who believe in free will, the ability to make decisions without any other person telling them, no outside forces or whatever. Usually not, religious people believe in free will because it's tied into their entire doctrine. Typically, okay, I'm not that knowledgeable on religions, but I know this to be relatively true. Okay, if it's not, let me know. Okay, then in the reverse, you have somebody like me who's a hard determinist. Okay, insane. Also insane. A hard determinist says that every action or choice, anything somebody made, a decision or whatever, is always by the influence of things that they don't even realize. Something like environment. You could even say genes, right? You know how there's like certain things influence your behavior based on like your parents' parents. Okay. There's always going to be a component that changes whether or not, or I'm sorry, there's always going to be a reason for why I did or said something that is beyond my awareness. Okay. It's kind of equivalent to you see somebody shoot up heroin and you say, you have a problem, we should get you help. And they're like, it's not that bad. And a lot of people would be like, they're lying to themselves. No, there's influences that have made them think this way. Until you fix that underlying thing, whatever it is, trauma, could be anything, then nothing's going to match. Okay. But like somebody who believes in compatibilism is like in between the free will and the hard determinist. And they say, you know what? I could understand that there's sometimes things influence our behavior and thoughts, but not all the time. Okay. These are when I call them copes. You'll remember it because of the C. Okay. Coping compatibilists. They always complicate arguments because of this one concession they like can't make. Okay. If you get into a debate with a compatibilist, leave. It's not because they're smart or stupid. It has nothing to do with that. It's that usually these people do not know their stance to a T. It's like dealing with somebody that has a very wishy-washy, secular, if you will, moral framework that they decide what they do based on that. You ever talk to a utilitarian? Exhausting. Exhausting. Now times that by 2 when you get into a debate with them. It's easy. It's an easy win with that knowledge, but it's exhausting. I wouldn't even bother. Okay. That's a compatibilist. You need to understand this. That component's going to make this even more complicated. Okay, so like if free will exists, if free will sometimes exists, is what we're dealing with. Okay, now you got to make it with the fucking God. Exhausting. Oh no, why is this not working? Give her a Red Bull, they said. It will be fun. Okay. Be sweet. Easy. 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 I'm a boring bitch. What could I tell you? Okay, what do you want me to do? Hula hoop? Hello. How is everybody? That's problem right there. The hard determinist equivocates free will with omnipotence, such that a subject doesn't have free. Easy. Easy. Okay. Subject doesn't. That a subject doesn't have free will if he or she does not have the knowledge of all influence that led to choice. Hello. Hello, Culture Club. Torshaa, have you learned to cook? No, I burned chicken the other day. Literally the other day. Okay, so I think that's fine for now. I think that's good. We can just get into it.
Yeah, so basically my statement is...
Also, I have to say, I didn't watch the first half, but I don't think I had to. That's too much work.
To say that if you believe, and this is what I do believe, that we have free will, you cannot logically say that God is omniscient. That is, that God is all-knowing. My opponents will maybe try to go in loops or try to kind of pigeonhole it in certain ways, but essentially what I'm saying is that all I'm saying is my opponents cannot say that God is all-knowing while saying that we have free will. That's all I'm saying. I'm not...
So right away, setting up a dichotomy trap, it's a good thing. I'm fine with it. It's just right off the bat. But like I said, there was probably another 2 hours that I haven't seen. This is when I saw it.
I'm not making any statements whether or not God exists or anything like that. All I'm simply saying is if you hold the belief that we have free will, you cannot also hold the belief that God is omniscient. By this, to define what free will is a philosophical concept that refers to the ability of individuals to make choices that are not determined by natural causality, fate, or divine intervention. And when we say all-knowing, often described by the term omniscient, refers to having complete or unlimited knowledge. The logical problem is as follows. If God exists and is omniscient, then God knows everything about the future, including every action we will take. Therefore, if God knows X will happen, then X is true and cannot be false because God's knowledge is infallible. The key thing here is that knowledge must be true. Therefore, if X, an action you will take, is already known by God, then you are not free to do otherwise, implying that the future is determined and thus there is no genuine free will.
Oh, wait.
And with that, I concede.
Okay. He kept it broad, so that was good. If I forgot to say it, he's in the affirmative, so he agrees with the proposition. And so when it comes to defining the whole proposition, you're going to want to keep it open. For the negative position, they're going to want to get really narrow on that definition if they can. It's going to work in their favor. So Nadim's going.
The rest of my time. Typical gentleman.
Okay. Nadim, would you like to reiterate your position?
Sure.
And
Sure.
Jim Bob, after Nadim goes, if you have anything different than what Nadim's position is, please feel free.
Makes sense. Okay. I don't know if it'll make it to 5 minutes, but we'll see. So I agree at some point to what Tariq says, just at the free will point. So free will does exist. I agree with that. However, free will doesn't presuppose the loss of omniscience, because omniscience, as we call it in our theology, is called foreknowledge, and knowledge doesn't presuppose the causality. Knowledge supposes only the action being observed, but not the causality of it. And then the argument could be said, but isn't God the cause of all things? There's a difference between primary causality and secondary causality. This is where free will jumps in. If God possesses both those causalities, then I would tell you, yes, free will doesn't exist and he's omniscient. But that would suppose predestination, not free will. So secondary causality means the fact that we're doing our action. However, the knowledge doesn't presuppose the action. We gave the example last time. We gave the example of Jesus knowing Peter will sin. And you use that for your advantage. However, I can use it in my argumentation and say that if Christ didn't, if Peter wasn't going to sin, he wouldn't have said that he was going to sin. So that's my perspective on it, because it wasn't possible for me to say that argument last time. And there's also another distinction we need to make. It's the observance of experience in time and timeless experience. There's a difference between that. And we cannot use category errors to define foreknowledge, because
There it is.
Foreknowledge in its essence is impossible to iterate in a created existence. However, there's another point I need to put, is also the potentiality of our actions. So God doesn't only know what our actions are; He knows every potential action we could have made. So knowing every potentiality doesn't require having action, because
That was like the key component.
there is
That it took a second. He got it though, but it's that potentiality. He doesn't make them for you.
potential that Peter could have not denied him. There is this potentiality, but the fact that Christ said it meant that he chose to deny him, not that he couldn't not deny him. There's a distinction in that. And yeah, I think that's basically it.
Okay.
Okay, so something also, if I didn't say it, Nadim and Jimbob are kind of in the same arena against Tariq. So based on all of that, I thought it was fine. There were a lot of moments that I'm assuming what's his face will come in to fix. Guys, I wrote down in fucking waitress notes. It's like CONT PONT. I'm like, what's pont? I'm assuming I meant potentiality. Who knows? The clarified, the timelessness. I put a question mark. I was confused. I put category error, question mark, ChatGPT. How would you come back from that? What is it? Is he disagrees with the proposition? I don't know. I'd throw in something like, was it Kant that came up with categorical imperative? More on that. If that's a yes, then you could just reframe it in that way. But I genuinely don't remember. Okay. I didn't understand the Peter example. If somebody wants to clarify it, I forgot to go back and try to clarify that. Knowledge doesn't equal causation. I'm assuming that Jim Bob will harp in on that, reinforce that, because that's their strongest point, I'm assuming. Let's figure it out together.
Jim Bob, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I want to pinpoint the secondary cause distinction, and also everything Nadim said basically explained a category error, temporal.
Not again.
understanding of causality in the created world, which is secondary
Okay.
From creation. We need creation for that. But another point I want to bring up is that if Tariq, if you're using the term free will, you need to account for free will. And so the only
Okay, so see how he's like, you gotta account for free will. So we can assume, we don't have to go back. He's saying that that's too broad. You didn't really define it. That's what he should be doing. Okay, that's what he should be doing, because he wants a narrow definition.
account for free will is God. And so you'd have to argue,
Yeah, it is.
if you're going to argue for free will, it necessitates God in a very particular way. And so then you have
Also, if you guys didn't catch my last video, when we first covered this and I was triggered, I explained myself. I fucked up. Okay, this is my video where I'm correcting it. I probably should have led with that in case you didn't see that. Video's still available, but yeah, so this is the portion where I flipped both people who were talking. That's what happens when you don't pay
to
attention.
then go, who is God? There's no way to argue for God unless he's not omniscient. So you're in sort of a conundrum here. If you're going
As a determinist, even a hard determinist, which is there's a concept with chaos and order. And the easiest way I can simplify this concept, because I'm not that smart to detail it like somebody like Robert Sapolsky, essentially free will doesn't exist, but you can control the environment. And that's the easiest way to conceptualize it. It sounds like a contradiction, but if you just take me at my word, just trust me, bro. I know. But you technically could change your environment. So bro says, Torshaa, do people will to integrate, or are they determined to do so? I think that eventually you would, because if you're not integrated, you essentially are operating in a web of lies, or like a balloon. It's like you're waiting for the balloon to pop. Okay. And that happens a lot. This is when you see people get canceled, too soon. But essentially, like, people can only hold up a facade for so long that when the bubble pops, it's an opportunity in that environment to take accountability and try to do better. But what happens is there's some people that just get so distraught over all of that happening, because it feels like the world's collapsing, that they just come back and keep reinforcing it. So I think, like, I don't know that's a hard question, because it's like, if you just end up repeating those same patterns, but you have the opportunity to evolve, it's complicated. I don't know. I'm not that smart about consciousness. Maybe it'll come to me when I'm old. Okay. Is it possible? It's dependent on developmental maturity. Maybe, probably, right? I don't know. It's still an environment thing, I think. I'll die on that hill. Thank you for the super chat. Siege D. Torrie, just got done watching your stream with Rolo and Sartain. I hope to chat with you on panel sometime without you getting voted off. I know. They don't like me. Yeah, you're welcome to. Just DM me on Instagram or send me an email, torshaa.torrie@gmail.com. Which panel with me and Rolo? Recently? We were gonna do the political one, but I couldn't make it, which sucks.
to appeal to free will, you're going to have to do it godlessly in this argument. So how are you going to account for free will in a godless universe? What is free will?
What is waiting? What is holding the facade? Is there a self in a totally determined world, or a machination of past cause and effect. Oh, you're fancy. What is waiting? What is holding the facade? The protection and chained up self. So, like, if we think about a narcissist, I feel like this is one of the easier examples because it's on like the most extreme end. For instance, there's a projected self that they've held up for longer than like an average person. This is like going on years, like arguably since childhood. And they themselves believe this wholeheartedly about themselves. If people were to say something about them, they would not believe it. It's kind of crazy. It's kind of an insight thing, which is interesting. Anyways, so what they do is everybody is an extension of their projected self. So when people pick up on that and expose them, if you will, if they do, then they kind of die by like public humiliation, if you will. But that's the only time that chain to that like insecurity, that projected self, it's like that's the one time that the chains are like let go of you. It's up to you to move differently or not. It's like it's like, think of it like a causal chain, and they're now they have an opportunity to get out of the web if they think that they can reconstruct their identity in a way that can make this all smooth over and it's not genuine. This cycle will just keep happening. I don't know if that answered it. Did it? It's also a time where, you know, I believe in like redemption. I genuinely think if you have the capacity of thought, which is such a privilege that shouldn't be taken lightly. If you have capacity, I feel like people should accept, well, they don't have to accept. I don't know. I just look at things differently. Like if I don't like sorries per se, what I like is changed behavior that, you know what I mean? Because if you say sorry, now, and the bad part about me is I'm going to have an expectation of you. That's something I have to work on personally. But I don't know if like, but I don't know. I don't want to. I don't want to. The reality is we all have like other things going on in our lives and stuff. And it's like, if I know that about myself, if I know I'll put that expectation on, even though I know it's wrong, I can only imagine how many people do it and they're not aware that they do it. And you never want to have like tally keeping on anybody. Behavior is tricky. It takes time to get into good habits and reinforce that behavior, especially if you're attached to the projected self for so long. So I don't know. I think I'm too dense. Throw the whole bitch away.
By saying free will, you've actually necessitated a whole variety of things that need to sort of cohere together. If you're just simply saying free will is the ability to choose between two or more choices or something like this,
yeah,
then you're basically arguing within a created world that has you know, you're using induction, you're using the regularity of nature, you're navigating the world in a certain way. There's a you, there's a mind, right? All of these things are sort of bundled into free will. And that's why I ask a bigger question about it. Like, how can you possibly argue free will at all without God? So the first question is, do we have?
So now it's doing that circular logic, and it really undermines what he's saying. But the changed behavior, bro says, but the changed behavior was determined by cause and effect, not a person who willed it and cares about how you see them. Being perceived, if I'm understanding this, I might be misunderstanding. It doesn't matter how you are going to be perceived. So you shouldn't have that as a focus. I would say that that's still operating in a bad paradigm. But who the fuck am I? God? I don't know.
Have free
I'm
will?
just kidding.
And if the answer is yes, what are the preconditions? Who accounts for the preconditions?
If you want people to, in general, if people want them to be perceived well, be kind. Admit when you're wrong. Try to catch it sooner than later, And if you catch it, you really got to pay attention to when you do it, because it's not really on the other person to point out all that stuff. Why do I have to do the emotional labor? People have stuff that's tricky, but we have to set up an environment where people are allowed to fuck up, I guess. At large, people can be more patient. I think we have a tendency to not have patience with people, but then you have to balance that with respect for yourself. If somebody keeps taking advantage of you, even if it's your emotions, cut him off.
Conditions for free will. From my point of view, and Nadim's as well, it's going to point to the Christian triune, omniscient, all-knowing God. But more specifically is, again, God knowing all potentiality, and us having the experience of choice are not mutually exclusive. One doesn't deny the other. The best you can do, which the argument.
Just a Guy says the laws of God given through religion are to allow us to develop self-mastery. God wants to see that we won't use agency unjustly. Oh, that's good. I'm going to put that because I'm going to need that later. I want to fall down that rabbit hole. I was thinking about it when I've been talking about the overlap between atheism and religious people. And I'm like, it's this power thing keeps coming up. And I'm like, why does power and agency often there's a thing going on? You know what I mean? And it's we have to allow people agency no matter what. Everybody has to have agency. And it's oh, this actually, the power and the agency thing, it makes more sense. And I guess I understand that there's times where with love, this is complicated. With love, control can be out of love. The issue is the distinction. That's what I'm having a hard time with. How do you know when somebody is coming from a place of love? And the only thing I've gotten to is looking at either urgency, but even that, somebody could urgently want to fuck you over, right? Maybe. Urgency and the outcome. Way more. You guys are getting deep. God damn it.
The debate isn't really about is the ambiguity of judgment. If God knows what we're going to do, what does that say about his judgment about us? Sure, that's something to explore, but it's irrelevant to the free will argument, or it's at least parallel to it somewhere. So I would just finish by saying
there's always a selfish incentive behind being controlling, for sure. There really is. I probably wouldn't have agreed with you on that. Growth, baby. But could it be selfish for their well-being? Or is it selfish for your expectation of how reality should be? Right? I know you all know what I'm thinking about. God damn it.
We have to explore secondary cause. And then we have to explore the moment you say free will, what does it actually entail from your view?
That was good on him. Now he's trying to get him to narrow it down. And if he doesn't narrow it down, it's going to appear like he's obfuscating. Oh, I said it. I did it. By asking about the entailment of it. If he doesn't, he's just going to look, you guys call it bad faith or defiant, combative. Yeah.
Yeah, so in terms of the free will, like I said, I gave the definition. It's the concept that refers to the ability of individuals to make choices that are not determined by natural causality, fate, or divine intervention.
So Jim Bob like nodded, right? He's right. It was good on Tariq. You know, that's what. But is he going to explain it? I don't know.
The reason why we know free will exists is that if everything is predetermined, that is that the theological doctrine that all events, including moral choices, are determined completely by previously existing causes. That basically means more responsibility, moral judgment.
What I want to know is the fixed outcomes. Batman, help.
Every single judicial system essentially is meaningless. And because we know that moral responsibility and moral judgment is necessary for society, that's how we know that free will exists. So then back to to Nadim's argument.
So, I only did the first opening part when I was like looking at it. I did read all of it though. And I'm just realizing that that was actually really good on Tariq's part to preempt that. Because that stops Jim Bob from I forget what it's called. It's like, why does it matter? Why does it matter? You could call this the preempting Andrew Wilson if it's easier. Okay, we all understand. Yeah. I just noticed that now. So I was going to say something that Jim Bob could do in the next exchange later, which it sounded like he was setting him up for that. It's like why now I'm like, oh, it would have set him up to the point where if he couldn't say like the purpose of it, it would do that thing again. Sorry, I can't talk.
In terms of the causality, even if God doesn't cause the future, the mere fact that you're saying that God knows the future.
Batman's like, what's the question? No, you're good. My question is the mutual exclusive, like the fixed outcomes, the foreknowledge and the fixed outcomes. Timeless knowledge, fixed outcomes. To me, there's too much of a paradox going on. I'm telling you guys, this is a complicated topic, okay? Not just to cope right now, but it's a really complicated topic. So cheers on them.
Suggest that it is fixed, meaning the knowledge must be true. Justify true belief is what knowledge is. To say that you have knowledge of the future is to know that your knowledge that you have of the future is going to be true. If that future was to change, that means that that's no longer true knowledge. Correct?
Okay, so we talked about this concept of true and knowledge, and he just set him up, or he just put himself in a hole by saying that. Why? Because technically we operate like the observable reality is true, and it is. Like, I'm not like saying it's not, but in these sorts of debates, it's kind of useless to go there. So what they end up doing is, sorry, this is horrible. It's fake ass hair. It's like made of cotton or nylon. I don't even know. It's not real hair. Anyways, when we're talking about true knowledge, we're always going to be operating in whatever, first of all, true framework we're doing. There's like 9 or 12 pragmatic correspondence, blah, 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 blah. But then you're also deciding if you're under the epistemological, the philosophical, and theological, which Tariq is going to want to, he wanted to keep the definition broad. So this is like, I don't know if his intent right now to confuse everybody, but he has that opportunity. You have that opportunity when you have a broad definition. And this is like the perfect topic to really confuse your opponent. Ooh. Place your bets, y'all.
Correct?
Okay,
How
hold on.
does
Let
that
me
negate-
let me
how
let
does
me
that negate
interrupt.
free will?
Hold on, Nadim. I just want to catch him on one thing.
Oh,
here.
that's what you meant earlier.
Are you claiming?
Okay, so to answer your question, Tori, yeah, okay. I saw that you said that, and I was like, is he thinking about the thing that I'm thinking about? Okay, thank you.
That God has justified beliefs?
Just like true beliefs. That's what
Okay,
knowledge
so
is.
I know, but if
Batman says Millennialism argues against fixed outcomes by proposing a framework in which God's foreknowledge and human free will can coexist without the need for determinism. This is the thing. Yeah, this is the thing. This is achieved through, remember earlier when I said it's like they're still holding on to something, it's going to kind of be relative. It's that. This is achieved through the concept of middle knowledge, a key element which holds that God knows all possible outcomes of human choices, even though those choices are not fixed. That's like a very not fixed or determined in advance. So how could that even be true, right? You know where it is? Where I talk about the evil self, the projected self. And like, that's the only instance I can think of in my brain. Can you give me another instance? I don't like this topic.
God has a justified true belief, right? That's also a category error. We humans have justified true beliefs because we're taking in new data and we come to conclusions based on evaluation of new data. To say God is in the same category as the human mind in regards to taking in new data, evaluating it, and coming up with beliefs, it's a contradiction to him being all-knowing. So you have to choose. He's either all-knowing, and there are no justified true beliefs that God holds, right? Because that would require some sort of process in the created order that we evaluate, use induction, use the past, use the concept of the future. You're
Batman. I'm sorry. What could happen, what free creatures would choose to do in any conceivable situation given their nature, desires, and free will? Right. Murphy's Law. It's an interesting philosophical concept. It's original. That's what it is. Genuine. Like that. I kind of understand when people say it can't just come out of nowhere. I totally get it now. I'm not saying I necessarily agree with it. But it makes a lot more sense now that I'm hitting the wall. Yay, maturity.
committing another category error by saying God has justified true beliefs. That is to say, he uses the same methodology and practices we use to gain knowledge, new angles of how to see things. If God is all-knowing, there is no process of justified true belief the way a human mind would have it. Do you see that? So if you're gonna try to
So justified true belief, if you saw my video before, it's so triggering to me. I just find it to be a very stressful concept. It kind of deals with like, what's like a good example? We'd had like a whole quarter on justified true belief. I mean, it's like that serious. Not whole quarter, but like we did it for a week. It's complicated. And it deals with like, you know, when you have like an idea and you're like, that probably won't happen, almost like a coincidence. It's like a coinkydink. And then you justify it, but wow, it must have been something else. And you believe that to be true. It's who was the one that came up with, who's the one that said that sometimes it's a philosopher that realized that justified true belief doesn't necessarily make it factual. I hope I don't fuck this up. I probably should have Googled that. Forgive me. But essentially it's like you can have all the elements to get something to be true and it's still not necessarily true. I mean, maybe I'll
transpose the human mind and its processes onto God. That's a mistake. And if you want to insert some other methodology, you can try, but you can't use the human methodology and transpose it onto God.
But what I'm merely saying
But
here is
that,
that the
wait, wait,
definition of
wait, wait.
knowledge is justified through.
So that, just right there, he just was able to substantiate Tariq's claim. Why did he do that? Did I miss
Belief.
something?
And that the knowledge that
For
if we're to say
humans.
that for humans, but even in our perspective, like
Well,
this is what we're talking
that's
about. In our
category
words.
error.
I just told you it's a category error. You're just
Yeah, but what
doubling
I'm
down
saying
on a
is
category
either
error.
no matter what.
So unfortunately, I have to dock points here, okay? Because just because you point out it's a category error, which both Nadim and Jibbab did, they still haven't substantiated it. So either he's setting Tariq up right now to justify it for him and make it appear like as if he won. Tariq, don't fall for that. Hope he won't. It's a trap for sure, but in, like I said, in like easier things, it's a lot easier things. In simpler debates, it's more obvious. Granted, we're pausing it a lot right now, so maybe it does seem obvious.
Way you want to transpose this, it has to be true, correct?
What has to be true? A
Or knowledge.
belief or an outcome?
Knowledge.
So if God is all knowing, he is composed of so to speak, or
the gettier problem. Okay, hold on. Where's my chat GPT? Knowledge equals justified plus true plus belief. If one of these elements is missing, the belief is not justified, or the proposition isn't true. It doesn't count as knowledge. 1963 philosopher Edmund Gettier challenged this definition by showcasing where all three conditions are met, but the belief still doesn't qualify as knowledge due to lucky guesses or coincidence. You go, bitch. You go. These are called Gettier problems. This is something that you should absolutely have in your arsenal. I like it. Especially if you're going to debate anybody who's religious with love. Okay. Something to have.
All knowledge inhabits in God. Is that what you're saying? All knowledge.
What I'm saying is it has to be the knowledge that God has to be true, correct?
Yeah, God is pure true knowledge. Yeah.
Yes. So if the knowledge that God has of the future is true, it means it cannot change.
Hold on, I asked ChatGPT. I was like, how would a religious person argue against a Gettier concept? A religious person could argue against the Gettier problem by appealing to theological principles. But that's a fucking fallacy, yo. Hold on. This is why it frustrates me. Okay, so almost all of the... All right, religious people, you listening? Okay. Anytime this is... You're going to try to... Hold on. I want it in the reverse. By pivoting and reframing their argument in a way that reinforces their perspective without falling into logical fallacy. That's impossible. Fucking ChatGPT. Hold on. So you could question the other person's framework, introduce the idea of ultimate justifier. introduce the role of faith beyond justification, Kantian limits to reinforce argument, conclude with practical implication. Actually, that's a good idea. Actually, come to think of it, wait a minute. Okay, so if you're religious and you say something that falls into the gettier problem and somebody points it out and you're like, how do I get out of this? Like I was saying the other day, the experiential truth, in my opinion, who doesn't know anything, that's the ultimate truth. Now compare them. Talk about how they're the same. But before you do that, I would maybe set them up. This is easier said than done. Set them up to get them to talk about something that only they know is true and make it really contentious so that you can be like, I don't know if that's true, and then get them to really support it is one way, so that you can come back and be like, so then experiential truth would work in this instance, and they would have to concede there, or else their very personal triggering experience would be refuted almost instantly, even though it's something they know is true. Remember it, okay? Remember when people hold things very tightly that they don't want to change their positions? That would be the ultimate shit test, I feel like. It's like one way. But now in the reverse, for the non-religious person, pointing out, making sure when somebody's talking about a justified true belief that you bring up the gettier problem. This is why I don't think ChatGPT is helpful, y'all. Especially in debates. It requires a lot of reading.
Fixed, correct?
The knowledge, of
also,
God. That
for those that are unaware, we have Batman in the chat who's also done formal debate. So if I'm not making sense, listen to him.
God has, but what you're trying to make it synonymous with us in a secondary created world not being able to truly choose, right? That's what you're saying?
Yes, for us, that like our perception of free choice wouldn't be free choice.
Okay,
because the future is fixed.
Can you give two premises that follow with the conclusion that in a secondary order of creation, human beings with independent minds, thinking, ability to choose, is negated because God has knowledge?
Because in order for if the future is known, that is to say the future is fixed. And if you're to say the future is fixed, that means you don't have a choice. It's already
but
predetermined.
That's not an argument. I asked for two premises and a conclusion. You're just saying the conclusion.
Okay, can you restate the position then, or restate the question?
You're you're starting with the conclusion. You're just saying if God knows everything, then you don't really have any choices in the matter.
But no, so if it doesn't matter is what Tariq was pointing out, which makes sense, right? Like does it change things just because God knows everything? Does it change your ability to choose? He's making the category error, but granted, I keep stopping and going on tangents, so I'm unsure if I hold that. Hold on. I can be wrong.
But to come to that conclusion, you're going to need to have premises and then have the conclusion follow from the two premises. So it's logical.
So long.
Okay, yeah, so I'll just restate the premises I gave in my opening. If God exists and is omniscient, then God knows everything about the future, including every action we will take.
Also, for those that need to know this, if you want to enter into debates, go into formal. I'm just kidding. If you're going to do any debate, YouTube, anywhere, there's something that you must know, and that is every single concept, thought, anything in your mind is probably still being debated. Don't let somebody push you into like, well, that doesn't, you can still push on it. It's figuring out where that loophole is and how to frame it in your best benefit. It really, all it is a performance. From like a strategical standpoint, you get into YouTube and it's all just about making somebody look stupid. It's not really fun to watch. When you understand formal debates, you're looking for those traps. It's kind of like chess. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. But yeah, just a little confidence boost. No matter how sassy somebody is, or confident, assertive, persuasive, they make you feel bad, every single topic is still up for discussion. Okay? Love you.
Premise number 2. If God knows X will happen, then X is true and cannot be false because X knowledge is infallible. Therefore, if X is already known by God, then you're not free to do otherwise.
Bro says that wouldn't work as well as you think, Torshaa, because the truth experienced is deterministic. So the one doesn't actually know it to be true or not. It's so okay. I'll try to explain. I hope I make sense. When we go back to the projected self, arguably reality in this day and age where everybody's like operating on projections, reality isn't as true as we know it. I'm not saying that to sound pseudoscience. I'll explain. From a hard determinist perspective, you can manipulate the environment. But then once that's manipulated, it kind of goes straight into this causal chain. Okay. Just imagine it in your brain. Turtles all the way down. And that there's opportunities where you're shown reality, if you will, and you can kind of step off of the hamster wheel. I know I said linear, but fuck it. It gives you an opportunity to step out of that, but you have to choose truth. You have to live authentically. So if you're projecting, you're not seeing reality. You might like physically things look there, but you're operating off of lies. It's just a web. You're going to see everybody is out to get you. You're going to be paranoid. It just escalates and escalates. So when you say truth is experienced, is deterministic, so the one doesn't actually know it to be true. They don't know it yet. Personally, I don't think they know it yet, but you get to a certain point where like, okay, you have the entire almost like audience population. This is for like creators. I feel like it's easier to conceptualize. I'm not that smart. If everybody's coming out to expose you, assuming that this person actually did something wrong, there's instances where people do the reverse, but it's like your environment is telling you you have to change. Was it a choice? I don't know. That's kind of, see, that's contradicting itself though. I don't know how to bring those two concepts together yet. Thank you for pointing this out. I'm going to have to get clear. Love you. I'm not sure how I don't know how I can mend that.
Implying that the future is determined.
Self-awareness.
There is no genuine free will.
I think you're just making
my question is deeper. Is the self even real in this deterministic worldview? No. No, it's a distorted sense of self. Are you guys trying to walk me down into like this like fucking enlightenment? What are we doing? My question is deeper. Is this self even real in this deterministic worldview? No. So like let go, right? I think. I don't know. Ooh, I love this
logical leap. You're just trying to say that all you're saying is the conclusion again. You're just saying if God knows everything, then you don't have a choice. But the premises don't establish that you don't have a choice.
No, I'm making the distinction that if the future is known, then the future is fixed.
Known by God.
What'd you say? Hold on. There's also a bait and switch people do where they describe why we don't have maximal autonomy. Then say, therefore, we don't have free will without making a distinction between the two. It's a circular argument. See, you can almost guarantee if somebody's doing a bait and switch on you, they're lying. They're lying. And I wouldn't have said that 6 months ago. But if I'm understanding this correctly, the bait and switch I see is like somebody's lying about something, and in the event that they're not lying, right? It's probably a circular argument. Choose wisely, I think. Therefore, we don't have free will. Hold on. They describe why we don't have maximal autonomy, then say, therefore, we don't. I would bring up like somebody who has seizures and can't drive a car. They have maximal autonomy, right? We don't throw them in jail. Maximal, that's what maybe. There's a lot of reasons for things. I would say that's the best example. Seizure. They get occasional seizures. They can't drive a car. But you don't feel like justice has been served and they're getting their deep punishment because their driver's license has been inactivated for a while. It's not them. It's their brain. If you know, you know.
God, if the future is known by God, right? If God
It
knows
must be true.
all potentiality, right? If he knows all potentiality,
Does the environment tell anyone anything? Does the environment tell yeah. Anything that you put out into the world that's justifying an egocentric mindset, there's kind of a mirror being held up to you. Why? You guys are like, she's going to become religious.
it still doesn't negate that we have a choice in a secondary world, in a secondary a cause.
Wait, I keep hearing about Jim Bob Cat in these YouTube streets. Wait, what?
Scenario that if God's all knowing, he could still grant us choices in the matter. If he knows.
I believe in the self. I am pointing out that Torshaa should believe in the self if she, well, no, I'm talking about the projected self. Are you talking about a whole person? People need therapy. And no, it's all like conceptual. It's a theory that I just discovered, okay?
It doesn't negate our choice in the
That I've been questioning.
matter. You're just saying that it is, but you haven't established.
And no, actually, a hard determinist doesn't have to believe in the self. Don't confuse me. Can you clarify what you mean by self, or are we talking about two different things?
That's the case. You're just assuming it because it sounds like it's
Bye. I'm gonna go. Throw the old bitch away.
something that should happen, right? It's like, oh, well, if he's all knowing, then God in God's world knows all potentiality, like Nadim said. Therefore, anything we're doing is moot. It doesn't matter, right? That's what you're saying.
What I'm saying is that if we're to give a scripture analysis like the one that Nadim brought up, when Jesus told Peter, "You will deny me 3 times," could Peter not deny Jesus 3 times?
Yeah, he could. There's a potentiality that he could not deny.
See, there's the potentiality. Fucking it confuses me.
Yes.
But then the knowledge would no longer have been true.
No, then he wouldn't have stated it. That's the false dichotomy you're going to.
But as soon as
It's not
Jesus said it, then Peter was no longer had free will
no, he
for
did.
that choice.
I feel like the self, when I say they hold up a mirror, though, they can't run away from it. It's like a shadow. It doesn't go away. The only thing that's in your environment, like objectively, is nothing. Maybe the outcomes, if that, but not really. You're still connected. There's still a line.
It's
Because he had to,
just a
because as soon as
sacred
Jesus
fact.
is
No,
there a
sacred
situation?
knowledge.
Is there a situation for Jesus that
Ow. You can't run away from your shadow. It's in your environment. Maybe that way is easier.
have said that?
The thing with compatibilists is that they think that nothing else is affecting their choices but their own brain. They decide it. I don't believe this to be true. I haven't seen science that supports it. The science all points to us not even being aware of what we're going to pick and it being implemented, and then we pick it and then we justify it later. This is the reason that I think I did this. No, you don't fucking know. Okay, you just think you know. Environment is, we know nature versus nurture. The kids that grow up in an environment that maybe they're homeless, maybe they go home to home in the foster care system, maybe they have a genetic thing for, like, I don't know, anger outburst, forgive me, I don't know. Are they more likely to commit a crime later? Well, their environment has made it perfectly plausible, right? And if we can't put that standard on everybody, then how can you justify that? If it happens for one person, where would you make the distinction? It's them, not them. Why? Because this one had better outcomes and we can't attribute their success to them having a perfect family? Bullshit. If it's going to apply here, it has to apply everywhere. And so when I say that compatibilists cope, they pick and choose. You can pick and choose in context-dependent scenarios like the trolley dilemma, because we know you're going to do that. You're relative there too. But then it comes to this, and it's like, you're going to be relative here too? Do you even know why you believe what you believe? Because I can't follow you.
And for Peter to have denied him.
Listen, stating a fact in the future doesn't.
It's not that. So, like, if I can't follow you, we're not grounding this in anything. Now, there's certain times where if you're unsure about the cause and effect component, then it's like, okay, fine. But the problem I see with compatibilists is they will argue both sides. And an easier way to think about this is like, what do you call them? Like fence sitters, that whoever they're in front of, they appeal to whatever they think the other person wants. It's like, stand on something, because we're falling together and I can't save you.
It doesn't negate its causality. Okay, that's where the secondary.
I'm not talking about causality.
No, if
it's an illusionary self. Yeah, I guess illusionary is a better way to put it, for sure.
Is the one that caused the denying, then it wasn't impossible for him not to deny him.
So you're saying that
true.
There's a possibility that he would have not denied him. Okay, even if Christ didn't say, if Christ didn't say it, and Peter had the choice between denying him and not denying him. If he had that choice, Christ stating that he would deny him or not doesn't deny the causality that Peter chose to deny him. It doesn't. It doesn't make. We don't lose free will.
Because if Jesus was to, if Jesus, let me get the state. So if Jesus was to state, you're going to deny me.
And just for people that are just joining, the reason that this part's going to go back and forth, it's still what I thought in the beginning, the problem of evil. Also, another concept that is good to have down. If you don't know that yet, you need to know that.
3 times. And Peter doesn't deny him 3 times. That means that Jesus' knowledge was not true, making it not knowledge.
Here, Nadim, let me. This is a little abstract.
To be honest with you, Batman, I would assume it's the Calvinism. Because every time that I'm like, hold on, and I ask ChatGPT, I'm like, can you explain to me why I struggle with this concept and that concept? It's always a Calvinist response. And I'm like, not today. Okay. Ow. Not today. And is Calvinist the like, have your cake, eat it too? Like, if this said, if free will exists, then God does not exist, makes more sense to me than if free will exists, then God cannot be omniscient. Why does it matter if he's all-knowing in this concept of free? Who cares? What correlation does it have? And I believe that's the mono-leon potential, whatever the fuck. I don't like it. It's simply an opinion, okay? It's not really grounded. I don't know.
Let's make it more mechanical. Okay, so
see, I don't think Calvinists are deterministic. Aren't Calvinists compatibilists? Okay. They're the compatibilists, the soft determinists. It's a contradiction, in my opinion. It's a cope. I didn't know that. Okay, now we know. Makes sense.
If what you're saying is
got it. Okay, so I flipped it. Wait, Calvinists are predetermined. How can a Calvinist be a predeterminist but also believe in free will? That's why I'm confused. News to me. How? It has to be a compatibilist. I forget that determinism has two definitions, obviously, but I keep explaining them in this moment. Now that's that makes wanting. What's a good thing to read about Calvinists? Because actually, with the whole thing I've been talking about the past couple of days, kind of sounds like it. Maybe I have a flaw in my reasoning. Give me a book. Give me a book to read. What's like a good recommendation?
God is all knowing. Therefore, you'd have to say, if God is all knowing, he causes us to choose things. That would be a little bit more rigorous.
No, Calvinists are hard determinists. Yeah, I ask myself this question every day, Tori. But the truth is they don't believe in free will. So actually, okay, so if that's all true and they are hard determinists like me, I think I could justify their position, which is crazy because like I said, I would ask ChatGPT, why can I not make this? Why does this seem like it won't fit? Or can I make this fit? Or this doesn't fit? And I would always get, this is a Calvinist. And I'm like, God damn, who are they? I feel I've something in my soul, something in me feels like that's wrong, which means there's a bias there, obviously. Because like, if I can't point to anything Calvinist, right, there's a bias there, but I don't know if I read something, that framed them in a bad way, but there's a bias I have for sure. I don't know why.
If I were
read Dr. William Lane Craig's works on there's a read. Okay, I'll read it. I'll finish it. How long is it?
You would try to do that, because if you're going to remove free will, if you're going to jump to there's no free will in the action of choice for a human mind, right? Here in the creation.
So then would Calvinists also follow like forgive me, would they also follow developmental psych, spiral dynamics, integral theory? Because if they do, there's a case there. Can you review your bias for new listeners? For sure. Well, like when because of like the ChatGPT being like, that's a Calvinist perspective, my original reaction just consciously is, what fucking Calvinist? And if I'm like, I don't know why I think that, other than being frustrated with ChatGPT, there's obviously got to be a bias there, because anytime you have like a strong visceral reaction to something that you don't even know why, other than ChatGPT pointing it out, I had ill information. It's figuring out where that came from, which I read a lot, so it's got to be somebody framed something in a way. Okay, somebody did.
World. You're going to have to say God is all knowing. Therefore, all of our actions are actually caused by God. Mm-hmm. That we're mechanically unfolding into a future that's written. That we have no other choice, right?
And then wouldn't that lead to the argument of then there's no reason to evangelize because God already determined who he's going to have in heaven and who's going to
It's
hell.
Calvinism. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
Calvinism.
that's Calvinism. Be part of the tulip.
But here's the problem. You're in a
I know why I don't like them. Personifying evil. They were the ones that personified evil. Duh. It's like, why can't I think of that? Final answer.
a contradiction. Like, so it not only is that the way you have to argue this, because all knowing skipping to we don't really have choice. You have to say God is actually point by.
If you guys are just joining, okay, because I said we were only going to do the intro. My goal for fixing this world, it's a little bit egotistical, but I believe that there is a usefulness to religion, texts, stories, myths, if you will, that we aren't aware of per se, because we're fundamentally operating from a empirical, non-religious framework, whatever that means. That can mean a lot of different things. And so my goal is to take the science and the religion and find where they're the same and how to implement and move forward, not in a way that's like we just want to include everybody. I think they always were included and we're missing something. So we're about evolving, no regression. Now, which parts of it are true? And it's we have one side that believes in observable facts. And right now, like atheists, I've kind of always felt this was problematic just from philosophy and school. It's like they would always want to argue with people who are religious on the grounding of facts and like less on usefulness. Like if I ever talked about it, I was like, well, we have studies that show stress is like the #1 killer of people. And we also have studies that show that those that believed in a religion had significantly better outcomes. It never got brought up in debates. That's a very useful thing. And anything that evolves with us it doesn't always have to have sorry for my pitch. It doesn't always have to have an adaptation that is obvious. Okay, let me break this down. Okay. Most things from like a Darwinian perspective, or even just like sexual selection, all the good sciences. It's like we got traits that get passed down and they're useful and they serve a purpose. But also under the same thing, there's some traits that are not obvious to why they would continue. Holy fuck. Okay. There's some traits, like the video, if you haven't liked it already, there's some traits that get passed down. They're obvious. They were for survival, whether that's like strong shoulders, whatever. They're very adaptable to the environment. But then there's also traits that have been a question of mine for like 10 years now. I'm like, why do things like schizophrenia, which I've dealt with somebody in my life who developed it, and I was like, why does that trait keep getting passed down? What purpose does it serve? And I think I just figured it out. Follow me if you want to watch me either lose my mind or become enlightened. But to scientists, they were always perplexed on why this trait kept getting passed down. And for those that aren't familiar with it, it's not that having schizophrenia is necessarily bad. It's that being able to, one, have insight into your illness and then living even a normal life that's like rewarding. Like a lot of times it requires medication and you have to know you're sick, and that's a very It's very difficult to get people there. And so a way to conceptualize it, if you don't know anybody with it, is think about dementia. But dementia hits you when you're like 19 more often than not in the schizophrenic cases. And it's like, just as every parent is throwing their child up to blossom into an adult, they get reined in by a disease that shouldn't happen until they're in their old age. I'm comparing it to dementia. And I'm like, why? It's not a question of why does God allow suffering? I've moved past that thing. I've been constantly like, what purpose does this serve? And they couldn't figure it out. But something they did, some studies they found was in every single family that somebody had schizophrenia, they found that in every family, cross-culturally, they found that there was also another person there that was a little odd, but not full-blown schizophrenic odd. And it's like they've conceptualized that little odd person had shaman-like abilities. They talk to voices, but at the right time. Okay, not constantly. And that was a hypothesis, but now I'm wondering, which is why I like stopped for a second. And so hold on to that. One illness that is not obvious on its that's not obvious on why it keeps happening, malaria. I don't know that much. It's something like malaria protects against red sickle cell. I think that's what it is. Sorry, something like that. Something where it's like, oh, there is a usefulness to it, but it's not obvious right away. But it has to do with the environment. So what about schizophrenia? Did I just solve my life's problem? I don't know. Okay, I love this shit. Thank you for the super chat. Anxiety sucks too. Black tea. I wish someone told me about it sooner. I am Batman. Thank you. Go get yourself a good meal. My treat. Think of it as a thank you for covering one of my favorite topics. I didn't know this was one of your favorite topics. I would have invited you on. Probably not. Love you. Love you. Okay, I'm rambling now. I feel like without... Give her some more likes. Yeah, guys, like the video. Love you. Love you. It's a very complicated topic. If what I was just saying interests anybody, trying to combine the religion and looking for what usefulness to an atheist, follow me, because we're recording it literally every day. I have so many people DMing me like, I just realized something. I was like, are we all becoming enlightened on something? Did I start that causal chain? Sick. Let's keep going.
A point causing us to choose things, that we have no will in the matter. However, if you choose that...
I did not land that by... Okay, so something that bothered me about atheists and religious people is they would continue to have this disagreement about truth. My background, I was on debate team formally, and then I also studied neuroscience, and I also took philosophy 1 and 2. And just something that I know just from being trained is that there's multiple types of truths. So for multiple types of truths, they require different objectives on how to get to that truth. And so anytime I would hear them have a debate, one of them is talking about the literal sense. A great example of this is Richard Dawkins and Jordan Peterson. That's why I was like, this is going to be the fucking greatest debate of the century. I feel like I was the only one excited. And now I'm seeing like more videos of people covering it, and whether that's a justified true belief, it's possible. It's just a coincidence or something. But I feel like there's something we're missing. I've been noticing this for a long time. We're not having constructive dialogue. It's very tribal when it shouldn't be. And it seems like the obvious answer is like the obvious, not obvious. It's like when we talk about the traits and stuff, it's like, why is schizophrenia getting passed down? Why do people believe in the in this and something else, and it's got to serve some sort of usefulness that maybe we're not aware of. And one of the points that I would bring up constantly as an atheist, just talking about stuff like this, is I'm like, I'm so curious why nobody brings up the mental illness and also religious belief. Now, I know there's a distinction, but I don't know how to communicate that. I was watching Matt Dillahunty covering this, and he was kind of condemning people for trying to appeal to a mental illness. And I vehemently disagree. And the reason I do is because they found links between religiosity and OCD. So either, and I'm not saying that if you believe in religion, you have like a mental illness. However, after watching somebody that I love watch their brain unravel, there's something that happens. And I've talked at workshops and to many families, people in the same position. And it's crazy how people go down, like when the brain breaks down, you see that more black and white thinking. It becomes so evident. They become almost racist out of fucking nowhere. I don't know why. Did it mess up? I don't know. Okay. Assuming nobody's medicated. Okay. And the illness just keeps progressing and deteriorating. It's like, why is it that when the mind unravels, it's following similar patterns? And then how do you differentiate between somebody who believes in the Messiah and then who believes they are the Messiah? Is it the self? I think I just solved it. Hi. Isn't this fun? Is this too much? I think I just solved it. Holy tits. Like the video. Fragmented self. It depends on if your self is fragmented. That's how you can determine. Torshaa is just, no, this is a way more complicated thing. It goes into capacity. This is way more complicated because you can still have capacity and project yourself and operate in a reality. What makes my reality more real than somebody with lack of capacity? There's still a distinction I can't make. I'll figure it out. It's like, what? How come me being able to figure something out doesn't fall on fucking delusional? Is it because I don't feel paranoid about it? There's some sort of distinction I can't make. So either I'm not enlightened yet and it takes years, or I am and I'm just ignoring it because I'm being bitchy. I genuinely don't know. So how... You still have not demonstrated that self exists, though. Like materially? You still have not. What do you mean? Yes, I have. Like metaphysically. Metaphysically or materially?
We have no access to knowledge.
Sorry. You know, Torsha's deep in... I know. When Torsha's deep in thought when she plays with her hair like it's a crochet weave. It's like fidgeting. It keeps me focused. So funny. People are like, oh, are you flirting with me? I'm like, no, I'm just in a lot of thoughts. Like when I used to bartend, they're like, oh, are you flirting? I'm like, no, I'm scared my hair is going to fall out right now, actually, as we speak. So you ready to order so I can go fix it? Inner talk to the self. I don't see if the self is not something that's obvious, then why is psychotherapy literally designed around that? It's like a science. It's a social science. It's not the same type of science. But man, I feel like we're If we want to deny that, that's a conspiracy I'm not getting behind. Both could be correct. Let's make a toy for that, a fidget spinner. Can't be materially because it doesn't physically fragment. Wait, but were you talking about the self, like the projected self? I thought you were asking me, how do you prove the projected self? And I gave the example that anything that makes you triggered in the reverse is something you can't come to terms with. It's a conscious thing. It's not like a material thing. That's why when you're saying I couldn't prove it, I'm like, proving consciousness? You lost me. It's a category error. I don't know. And this goes into like emergence, but everything's emergent. I've always thought that. That's right. But I guess it kind of follows the spiral dynamics. With age comes new awareness or whatever. It's kind of like we develop new, it's like we go through puberty with the brain multiple times in our life. People that follow truth, I guess, maybe become enlightened quicker. Are you okay? I'm coming. Okay, I didn't know that was my dog coughing. We will talk about this tomorrow because I love it. Like the video, comment, subscribe. Okay, love you, bye. I'm coming, though. I'm coming.